This segment has been in the works for like, I don't know, 6 months, but we're finally getting around to it.
Yeah, we just never got to it.
We just
Yeah.
never got to it last August or September when this documentary was released. And the documentary I'm talking about is Fitted in Black, the story behind the blending of the hip hop culture and the Chicago White Sox rebrand. And, you know, the documentary is kind of perfect because it's about 20 minutes long. And honestly,
Yeah, I
that's
didn't even realize
all
that at
that's all
first.
you really needed for it. It didn't need to be like an hour long, drawn out with, you know, clips of the team playing that year that are completely disconnected from the actual story at hand.
There's a little bit of that, but they do a good
Yeah.
job of limiting it and making it relevant, at least showing the uniforms and stuff. But
Yeah, showing the shitty uniforms and they were in very shitty uniforms right before the rebrand with that stupid script C on the hat that
yeah, the
looks like
late
an E.
'80s. Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
it looked like it could have been a Cleveland Indians uniform of that era.
Yes. Yes, it was they were in terrible shape, and the story does a really good job of setting up the rebrand and 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 how they made the decisions on the rebrand, which I thought was like super interesting on how they actually like brought the samples of what the uniforms are going to be to parties in the like Bridgeport area where fans
Yeah,
were
that was
at
awesome.
to see what their reaction was, and everyone gravitated to the the pinstripes with the socks that were all sort of
They
driven
were
by
I couldn't believe they were considering a blue and silver version of this of the familiar uniforms we are now, and that's what they were going to go with. But these focus groups they had at Southside Chicago block party said, "No, man, you got to go black and white, black and silver, not navy and silver."
yeah, and that
And
it
that was the
was
right move.
yeah, because they had consulted what are the hot colors, and it was black, silver, and navy. So they did the two different versions of the jersey. What what I what no one anticipated was how hip hop was going to and the general public going to gravitate towards the cap. I
And I
mean,
think it's important to point out how hip hop was like the emerging pop culture phenomenon. That was new in the late '80s and early '90s. It had been
right.
emerging throughout the mid '80s. But you kind of take hip hop for granted these days. But that was a new coolest thing at that point. And it seemed like everyone in the hip hop community immediately gravitated to the socks hat, the black hat, the uniforms, all of that. It kind of merged at the perfect moment, like all came together.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in perspective, the statistic they use in the new era produced 9,000 White Sox
Yeah,
caps the year prior to the rebrand. The year of the rebrand, they produced 550,000 White Sox caps. That
they,
that's
they
insane. It's fucking insane.
it was definitely they were definitely number one in merchandise sale and MMLB for that season. So
They told that story of Reinsdorf while in Arizona goes in to buy a cap and thinking I'm going to be able to just walk in and buy a cap because I'm in Arizona
no,
and there's none on the shelves, and he asked the gentleman what was going on, and he's like, I can't keep them in stock. If I could get them, I could just keep selling them, but there's they don't have them. They're
they
just
can't even make
gone.
them fast enough.
I couldn't even make
You
them
can
fast
thank
enough.
Dr. Dre for that. I think you
Yeah.
can thank Dr. Dre for that. And the
Dr-
Chronic, the Sox hat prominently featured. Ice Cube is actually part of the documentary. He's all throughout. I thought that was really cool because you see him all throughout all his videos. I think Easy E, NWA, they all had it. But I think the cultural zeitgeist really reached its crescendo with the Dr. Dre Chronic.
yeah, that was really that Ice Cube talked about why he went with the Sox cap, and it was they were coming out of NWA and they were always wearing Raiders caps, and he didn't want to still be tied back to like the NWA's stigma, and this cap hit the market and it had all the points in the cap, the old English lettering, and he talked about how they would put their own old English like iron-ons onto shirts and stuff like that on the t-shirts. They do them themselves, so it was like a
Hmm.
no-brainer. It was a no-brainer for him. I also thought it's kind of cool, like when he his first moment on camera, he like walks on the set and like puts the cap on and just he just bends the brim of the cap just a little bit. He's like, yeah, that's how you wear it. That's like that's how that's the fit, you know. The Big Hurt, of course, is on the documentary, and there is that funny little exchange between him and Dr. Dre in LA that he talks about how he walked into a restaurant and Dr. Dre was there and he's wearing a Sox cap and he didn't even know what to say to him, you know, because he's like, holy shit, Dr. Dre's wearing my cap, you know, the cap we wear. So that was kind of cool. They also did ask,
I thought
they asked, yeah, go ahead.
I thought it was important that Frank pointed out, like, part of it is if the Sox were shitty at that moment, it kind of would have fallen flat no matter what hip hop culture was doing with it. But Sox were good, and and Frank took credit for that too. Like, this wouldn't have happened necessarily if we were a shit team. That's when you're on the rise at that point. So it all kind of worked. It was amazing how it all kind of worked together in unison.
It was a perfect storm, as they say, Smitty, a perfect storm.
Ah, yes.
They did ask Ice Cube if he should be credited with the rise of the Sox cap, and he did. He said, "Well, maybe in the hip hop community, but I think Big Hurt's the reason. One of the reasons the popularity of the cap and the jersey and everything." To your point, just backing up your point, you're right. The Sox were a young, fun team on the
Yeah.
rise. And, every Sox fan looks back at 94 with the strike that their owner helped lead and how he
Mhm.
fucked up his own chances of maybe winning a World Series 10 years, 11 years prior to when he actually won one. So who knows how that would have. I did a whole segment, was it last year, on if I could go back in time, how I would. Oh no, that was Hawk Harrelson. It wasn't the strike. It was if he
Oh,
hadn't
stop Hawk
fired.
from taking over?
Yeah, yeah, stop Hawk from taking over and firing LaRussa. That would have saved us from the second LaRussa stint.
That's right.
But I also think there's another moment in time that if you could have prevented Jerry from spearheading a baseball strike, that White Sox nation may have been treated to one extra World Series or at least some sustained playoff appearances. But that was not the case. So, from a documentary standpoint, I kind of think it was perfect. I would give it, if we're rating aesthetics, two middle fingers up. I think it was a story well told. So,
I was expect like you said, I was expecting it to be an hour. I didn't realize I just pulled it up on the White Sox website. I didn't even pay attention to how long it was gonna be. But yeah, 20 minutes was perfect. It's a tight documentary, and there's no fill. I like that they talked about the designers, as I am a graphic designer as well. They they complimented. I don't even know if they named the designer, but the original design of the Sox logo that's right over your shoulder there and on your hat, it was done back in the 50s, a very similar version of it. But when they decided to do this rebrand in 19, it must have been 89, they took that same logo and just sort of cleaned it up,
yeah,
streamlined it. They actually showed the minor changes they made to the different letter forms in the Old English SOX, which I thought was
yeah,
really cool. Like, I'm the only one that, I mean, there are very few that necessarily care about that, but I thought that was cool. They gave some time to that, to like what they actually changed and how it was. It's not just a logo that came out of nowhere. It's something they had used throughout their history, but it had been improved and implemented in the most perfect way possible. I think it obviously time has shown that this is a 35-year-old rebrand now, and it is still looks as representative and perfect for your brand as you could possibly imagine. So that's one thing. I mean, I hate the White Sox, but I can never complain about what you guys' uniforms look like. Based on the black and white pinstripes, even with your City Connect uniforms, I've given you way
that's
too many
right.
compliments for, but
That's right.
I'm jealous in a way, I guess, a little bit. Not necessarily of the Old English D because I think that is still superior, or the white home uniforms, but there's more that can be done, I think, and we'll see what the Tigers do with their City
Yeah,
Connect uniforms this summer.
for those of you watching us on YouTube, if you look at this, because this was like the 77 uniform, you can see how weird the S is compared to what they changed it to. And this is obviously one of the, to just, show what Smitty was talking about. They cleaned up all the wiggly lines and things like that. And they straightened everything
They
out.
made the
So
X. They actually showed that they made the X a little more symmetrical, which is a
yeah,
principle of design, which is for dorks like me. It's fun to see. So yeah, I was impressed. But yeah, it's a cool documentary. I would definitely give it 2 middle fingers up.
Word Hole Media.